So this is an MS Views and News program. You can see on the screen behind me, it's MS Views and News. We are supported for tonight's program by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Novartis. And now we have Paul Pelland. So everybody, I hope you stick around again. And Paul, Paul's been around. Paul's been a speaker of ours for a while now. It's my pleasure to introduce Paul Pelland. He's a former top 10 motorcycle endurance competitor from New Hampshire who now travels the country raising awareness and funding for multiple sclerosis. His goal is to document 1 million miles by motorcycle while sharing his inspirational story at hundreds of MS patient events and delivering keynote address and seminars for all types of audiences. I'm not going to continue speaking about him. Let's just get started. Paul, take it away.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I was eating a Hershey's Kiss because it's before 9 o'clock. I think Megan said as long as you'd have it before 9 o'clock, you can have a Hershey's Kiss. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm somewhere in Virginia. I don't know where. I'm on my way down to Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm picking up a motorcycle that's been donated to MS Views and News, and we're going to customize it. I'm going to ride it, try to set a world record, and then we're going to raffle it off. So that'll be my next fundraiser, and I'm looking forward to that. So I'm midway on my trip today, but we're going to make do. This is my first time doing a virtual event like this, so bear with me. Multiple sclerosis affects each of us in different ways. My MS symptoms are mostly cognitive: short-term memory loss, mental fatigue, multitasking, impaired planning, decision-making, and short-term memory loss. Despite the hours and hours that I spent preparing this presentation, I have no clue what slide comes next. Heat is a big enemy of mine, and trying to get messages or signals through the damaged circuits in my brain get difficult when my body temperature rises even slightly, which immediately causes all my old symptoms to reappear. Hot weather slows me down to a crawl. How about you? Next slide. Lately, I've had to deal with a cheating, lying, good-for-nothing bladder. And that's been real fun, especially when traveling with all my gear on in the winter. When I was first diagnosed, it was very clear to me the importance of getting on treatment to slow the progression of the disease. And I've been on disease-modifying therapy now for 14 years. I also started taking better care of my body by exercising regularly and eating healthier. Next slide. Most importantly, I've discovered by continuing to do something that I really love, following my passion of riding motorcycles every single day, I've been able to keep this disease from controlling my life. Please remember, MS is not who you are. If you look up MS up in the dictionary, I guarantee you're not going to see my face. So make sure that your picture never makes it there either, okay? Next slide. Before getting diagnosed, I was a top long-distance competitor, and I rode in some of the toughest motorcycle endurance competitions in the country. During what became my last competition, I experienced weakness, loss of dexterity in my hands, confusion, and memory loss. I retired from competing, and I pretty much gave up riding motorcycles altogether. I tossed away my dreams, my plans for the future. I sold my business, and I prepared for the absolute worst. Well, it never came, so I stopped waiting for it. 7 years ago, I realized although I could never compete in motorcycle endurance rallies again because of my symptoms, I could still ride a motorcycle across the country, and that I'd thrown in the towel a bit too early on a sport that I really loved. Within a few months, I recalculated my entire life's road, and I'm now on a fantastic adventure, riding every day possible, following my passion, while trying to help others recalculate their roads as well. The story I'd like to share with you tonight is real, but the names, the dates, and the locations have been changed to protect the innocent. Back in 2001, I was not yet experiencing any symptoms of multiple sclerosis, but I rode a motorcycle that most certainly had some. Lemons and Long Shots is the story of my experiences entering the granddaddy of all endurance competitions called the Iron Butt Rally. It took me over a decade to realize how entering the world's toughest motorcycle competition on the world's most unreliable motorcycle ever built was frightfully similar to everyday challenges brought on by the unpredictable symptoms of MS. However, this adventure also taught me there is nothing MS can stop me or you from attempting. We just have to work a bit smarter and maybe push a little bit harder, but we can accomplish amazing things when we put our hearts and our soul into it. Although this story is about a motorcycle competition, I hope you will soon realize the motorcycle represents MS and all of its symptoms. The event represents daily life, and the rider, who just happens to be me, could easily be any one of you out there today. Has anyone ever heard of the Iron Butt Rally? More people have been in space than have actually finished an Iron Butt Rally. It's called the world's toughest motorcycle competition. It's held every other year. It's 11 days long, and riders average about 11,000 miles. Points are accumulated by reaching checkpoints after visiting optional bonuses picked from hundreds of possibilities. It's not a race. It's like a scavenger hunt on steroids. A drawing is held to determine which riders get in from thousands of entries. I knew that a few select spots were held for old or oddball motorcycles. So when my name wasn't drawn for the 2001 event, I sent a letter begging to ride the biggest piece of junk motorcycle ever built if they would just let me in. I told them I would ride a Russian-made motorcycle called a Ural. Knowing how unreliable and poorly made the bike was, the organizer first replied that he thought I was an idiot, but that my entry was accepted. At this point, not only did I not own a Ural, I had never even seen one in person. Excitedly, I wrote the bike's manufacturer to see if they would sponsor me. The company responded, "Sorry, Paul, but no one here in our office actually thinks our bike could finish that event." So I found and bought a used Ural. I hot rodded the engine, and I entered it in a smaller rally to test it out. Next slide. Well, halfway through the event, the motor decided to weld itself useless. As the big event was getting closer, I begged Ural America for help, and they answered in a big way. Next. They agreed to officially sponsor me, but I just couldn't tell anyone. They delivered a very secret weapon a few weeks before the event. I was going to be riding the first Ural motorcycle registered in the United States with a new, redesigned, more powerful engine. I had to sign a bunch of non-disclosures because the new engine, which was the first change in design since Moses rode one to the edge of the Red Sea, it was still a big secret. Next. The 2001 rally started and finished in Alabama with 3 checkpoints: California, Washington, and Maine. On a map, the base route was just a big rectangle. How hard could it be, I thought. Next. And click.
At the Ramada Inn in Huntsville, Alabama, the motorcycle people have taken over. And not just any motorcycle people. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to Bike Week. Let me show you some motorcycles here.
I am riding a 2001 Ural.
How do other people react when they hear that news?
Well, I get quite a bit of ribbing, but I give it right back so I can take it. And I've put a lot of miles on Urals, and things go wrong. I know what to do to fix it, and I have every intention of finishing the rally.
So that was Dave Despain from Speed Week reporting from the Ironbar Rally. And basically, when I told him I was riding the Russian bike, he just laughed out loud right into the mic. So obviously, a lot of people laughed at me for my choice of motorcycle. And actually, some riders in the rally were upset that I was wasting maybe a coveted spot that a real rider with a chance of finishing could have had. You know, sometimes we need to remind people it's not the bike, or when you live with multiple sclerosis, it's not our bodies. It's the rider, it's the person and our spirit that will power us and propel us over the finish line. Next slide, please. My bike was well prepared. I had huge saddlebags to fit all the spare parts and tools. I had a custom seat, a bigger windshield. I had extra driving lights, an extra fuel tank, a CB radio, radar detector, and a GPS. I was clearly ready to ride the world's toughest motorcycle competition, right? I thought so. Next slide. You can taste the anxiety the morning of the start. After all, some of us have been planning this ride for years. My strategy, which I proudly proclaimed, was that I was going to ride twice as fast as I possibly could so that when I broke down, I'd have more time to fix it. I was the only one who thought I had any chance of even reaching the first checkpoint. Next slide. Most riders were having an excellent first day collecting bonuses by taking a photo with their rider flags, whereas in West Memphis, Arkansas, and about 250 miles from the start, my Ural's engine self-destructed. Next slide. I frantically called Ural America for help. Curiously, they didn't seem very surprised. We found a Ural dealer in Tennessee. He didn't have any bikes for sale, but he had his own personal Ural, and he agreed to let me borrow the motor right out of his own bike. Next slide. Afraid to close my eyes during a 3-hour tow ride with an insane driver, I slept on the garage floor while the mechanic removed the diseased motor and swapped his own engine into my frame in the middle of the night. I was extremely grateful, and better yet, I was back in the rally. I left the garage like a bat out of hell. Probably not the smartest idea. My bike now had a 1928 designed 650cc motor without electric starter. I soon realized the blinkers and brake lights were not working. I kept waiting for the engine to warm up, but apparently crappy was how it was supposed to run. Next, I stopped to check on the rear lights, and after a quick rest, the engine refused to start. I alternated 4 hours of kicking and swearing with resting and praying before it haphazardly coughed to life. I was on the road again, heading to Pomona, and I was going to prove everybody wrong. That was until my freeway crash in Arkansas. You can stay on this one for a couple, Bill. The front end had developed a bit of a crunchy wobble, and a series of dips in the road had created an oscillating shimmy in the suspension. I knew I was in trouble when I looked to my left and I saw my own butt. I slid down the highway just behind my bike, watching bright, colorful sparks, unlike any of those plastic-covered Japanese bikes could create. After I stopped rolling, I slowly checked myself over. I was in one piece, but the bike, the windshield was cracked in half, the brake levers were bent, both air cleaners were nowhere to be found, the hand grips had been ground down. There was a 3-inch hole in the side of the engine, which leaked oil all over the road. There was damage to the saddlebags, the blinkers, and the driving lights. What a mess. I had made it through a blown engine, a scary tow ride, an engine transplant, 4 hours of just trying to start the bike, and now a crash. It's really hard to believe it was just 24 hours since the 11-day rally had first begun. I was exhausted. I was bruised, embarrassed, and pissed off that this piece of crap machine couldn't even roll in a straight line without falling apart. Maybe it's just me, but anyone here today, starting to see how this adventure or misadventure is starting to sound a lot like one of those tougher days we experience living with multiple sclerosis. I had given it all I had, but my Iron Butt rally was over. After I explained what had happened to the Arkansas State Trooper who showed up, he asked me what I was going to do about it. What? Well, he said, why don't you just try to patch it up and continue? The thought had not occurred to me. I got out the JB Weld epoxy, the duct tape, and he patiently waited while I made repairs. I told him I needed oil. He went back to his patrol car to see if a service truck might deliver us some oil. When he returned, he said they wanted too much money. I explained I didn't care. If it was $100, I needed oil to continue. He told me not to worry. He'd called his wife at home, and she agreed to meet us up on the highway with 2 quarts of 2050 motor oil. As I travel the country, I've benefited from the generosity of strangers just like this so many, many times. His encouragement to continue and his wife's selfless act of kindness is not as rare as the world would make us believe. Asking for help or accepting help from friends or strangers is a sign of strength, not weakness. Please do not be afraid to ask for help when your MS causes you to stumble or crash. I rode to the first exit to really check myself over and honestly put on some clean underwear. I called into rally headquarters to tell them I wasn't quitting. Tuesday afternoon, I was experiencing an intermittent problem. The engine would suddenly lose power, but when I leaned over to look at it, it would run fine again. It happened 3 or 4 times before I finally realized there was nothing wrong with the motor. My pant leg was getting sucked into the open carburetor that had lost its cover. Sometimes sort of reminds me of how we're quick to always blame MS for every ache and pain that we have, right? Early the next morning, somewhere in New Mexico, the headlight, once as bright as about a lit cigarette, began to get dimmer and dimmer. I pulled off the first exit and I began to check over the wiring and connections. I found a broken wire in the alternator. I wasn't worried because I was carrying a spare alternator. Unfortunately, the spare was for the newer motor and it didn't fit. It did fit, however, in the nearest dumpster. Next. After a few dents in the tank, some cursing and an act of contrition, I was able to repair the alternator. I had to push start the bike, but I did finally get it to run. Things were fairly normal until, next, Wednesday afternoon. I was 150 miles and 5 hours before being time barred at the first checkpoint. I was in the desert and it was 110 degrees. My bike has MS, remember? Well, my bike hated the heat. One of the 2 working cylinders called it quits. I continued limping along at about 25 miles an hour until I reached the hill. The bike refused to go another inch and died. I was completely fried. The bike was totally fried. The California Highway Patrol officer who stopped was not very friendly or willing to let me fiddle with it on the side of the road. I didn't even bother to ask him to call his wife. Against my will, we were towed into Barstow, California. Next. I did all I could to fix the bike, but I finally conceded I would not make the Pomona checkpoint. I had been through so much, and I was so close, but my brain was fried. I was overheated, angry, and then I became extremely depressed. I was a failure. I called into the checkpoint reporting I wouldn't make it in time. The rally staff reminded me that I could miss one of the 4 checkpoints as long as I went and got a gas receipt and did not miss any others. I would, however, they cautioned, have to forfeit all of the bonuses that I had received on leg 1. I laughed. Bonuses? What were those? The call gave me a surge of renewed hope, and I eventually found a stripped bolt in the valve train, and I was able to jam a couple of nuts together to hold it in place. The bike started right up, and both the bike and I were running on all cylinders once again. I went to Pomona, and I got my gas receipt. I got to experience the Santa Monica Freeway during morning rush hour with only one turn signal and no brake lights. It was quite the experience. Next. I only remember one breakdown on the way to Sunnyside, Washington, and I diagnosed it and fixed it, a loose plug wire, without even pulling over. I fell asleep on a soft patch of parking lot asphalt, and upon waking up the next morning, I could hardly believe I had made it all the way to checkpoint 2. I got scored, and besides the riders that were out of the rally, I was in last place in the points. Most of the riders were amazed to see me. They'd heard some rumors that I was having some trouble and was out. The Ural factory team was originally meeting me for an oil change, but now they were installing the only other 750cc engine in the entire country into my bike. My bike was given a third engine and a full service. The electrical wiring was repaired, and heck, it was like I had a brand new old bike again. With a second chance, maybe at a good finish. Ever feel like you have superpowers after getting a good dose of steroids? Next. I looked over the new bonus list, and I expressed to the rally staff that I was thinking about heading to Alaska for some of the big bonuses on this leg. I was strongly encouraged not to attempt Alaska, and in fact, I was actually threatened. If I went and I failed, my chances of ever riding this event again were slim to none. The rally organizer added, Paul, you don't understand. You have to make it. More people are paying attention to you and your adventure than the riders who are actually winning. And he added quietly, some of us actually believe you might make it. Things were going great until I heard this jingling sound coming from the left side of the bike. It sounded like keys were dangling, but I began to get worried. So near Rock Springs, Wyoming, I pulled off the highway and into a dirt rest area to investigate. I found a lot of aluminum shavings in the valve cover. One of the engine push rods seemed bent. It was spinning in an oblong orbit. I called and explained what I had discovered to Golden Hands Alex, who was the head Russian mechanic, who instructed, remove push rod, bang straight on the rock with hammer. I removed the bent push rod, only to find, and next, it wasn't bent. The steel cap had broken off the aluminum shaft. The push rod was in two impossible pieces. So I called back the #1 top Russian factory expert technician, who simply said, no problem, find the metal, make push rod. Next. Now, push rods are somewhat important internal parts of an engine. They move up and down to open and close the valves, letting in the gas and the air at the precise time. John Quinones asks, what would you do? Well, I did have quite a bit of tools and parts with me, but I did not have any spare push rods for the new motor. Next. I knew duct tape wasn't going to hold, so I decided to try some epoxy. I let the glue harden, and I put the push rod back inside the engine. The bike started up, and I took off, trying to be real gentle on the throttle. Incredibly, I made it 50 miles before somewhere near Rawlins, Wyoming, the pasted together push rod failed. Once again, I was putting along at 25 miles an hour, running on one cylinder. The engine was thumping, and the rhythm began to take on a curious verse. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. This was a pivotal moment in the Ironbird Rally for me. I stood up on my foot pegs, I opened up my helmet visor, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, I will not go home! I will not give up, you commie bastards! And with a grease pencil, I wrote across my windshield, I vowed no matter what, I was going to finish. I just needed to figure out how. And I wrote, I will not give up across my windshield. I caressed my injured donkey into Rawlins, Wyoming, where I found a hardware store, and in about 5 minutes, I discovered the solution. I purchased a couple of long, hardened drill bits, and with that grinder that I spotted in the back room, I forged myself a couple of brand new Ural push rods. Next. Find metal, make push rod. Check. Next. The drill bit push rod worked, and the bike actually ran better than ever before. I was back on the road and on my way to the third checkpoint in Maine, where so I made it to the checkpoint in Maine, and I retrieved the care package that I had sent there weeks earlier. The package, the box reads, "This package is for the guy riding the biggest piece of crap in the Iron Butt Rally." You know, my whole life I found that laughing and joking, even at my own expense, to be powerful medicine. Today, living with MS symptoms and deficits is no different. I often make fun of my bad memory, my bladder, when I trip or get lost in the parking lot and need help. For me, joking gives the disease less power over me. Next. Here's a picture of my bike's windshield with my words of encouragement from Wyoming. I will not give up. Next. With the exception of another charging system failure and another alternator repair, I had a rather uneventful 1,300-mile ride to the finish in Madison, Alabama. Of 114 riders that started the 2001 Iron Butt Rally, 93 made it to the finish line. I may have come in 86th place, but I did indeed finish the world's toughest motorcycle competition. In 11 days, I had ridden a motorcycle never intended for anything even remotely close to what I did to it. I rode a bike in an event where other riders thought I was wasting a valuable entry spot, and even the organizers officially listed me in the hopeless class. I crossed the finish line on a bike whose own company president said would never make it. My struggle to overcome impossible challenges over those 11 unforgettable days helped shape who I am, and has taught me that if my desire and willpower is strong enough, there's nothing multiple sclerosis can stop me from attempting. This story helps get me through those days when my symptoms seem like they're winning, or when I wake up worried about disease progression. And I hope sharing this story with you can help you as well. Having a brain riddled with holes, having a physical or mental challenge, or riding a piece of junk motorcycle should never confine or define who we are. Please remember, you do not need to come in first place to still be a winner. I know we all have different MS symptoms, and my course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to some. I certainly don't expect any one of you to run out and buy a motorcycle and ride it all over creation. But I do know some of you are passionate about something at some time, and maybe you put that passion aside after getting diagnosed. I hope my million-mile journey for MS inspires you to return to or find a new passion in your life, and to make that passion more important than your disease. Look beyond the obstacles in the road, lean hard into the wind, and never give up on your hopes and dreams. Thank you for being a great audience. If you want to track my journey live, longhaulpaul.com, and I also post a lot of videos and pictures from the road on my Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and it's Long Haul Paul, one word. And I appreciate people subscribing, liking, sharing, following. It's been a great journey, and I'm doing what I love, and I believe it's helping my disease. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for you too, virtual. There we go. All right. So for those that didn't believe me that it was cold in here, it's cold in here. All right. Had to get that sport jacket off, get the tie off, and put on something that's warmer. Can't imagine being in Florida and it being chilly, but it is. So, all right. So we do
Hey,
have a few
Stuart.
questions. What's that?
Hey, Stuart, guess what the temperature was when I left my house at 6 o'clock this morning?
I don't know, maybe 6 degrees.
18 degrees on my
That's good.
motorcycle.
You could keep that, all right? You keep that. So I live in South Florida for a reason, but I'm in Central Florida, and it is chilly here. So for those that are online, thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed Paul's story. I hope you really got it, understood why his motorcycle had MS, so to speak, and it was a good analogy for those of us living with MS. Paul, so we have a question. As you recover from some medical issues, are you unable to fulfill your passion of motorcycle riding on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, I because of COVID, I actually was able to schedule some elective surgeries that I've been putting off for a while. I had eye surgery, I had arm surgery. So, I've been off the bike a little bit, but also most of the events that I usually travel to have all been canceled this year. So my goal of riding 1,000,000 miles was not just leaving my house and going out and doing a loop around the neighborhood or 500 miles every day and come home. It was the miles I wanted to count for MS. So to me, going to an MS event or going where I'm raising money or all the motorcycle shows that I do all year long, where I hang out with Yamaha, I hand out brochures, and I raise money for charities. All those events were canceled this year, so it has been a light year for me, which allowed me to do some of the surgeries. So I'm hoping to be back full time on the road as the virus and things hopefully we turn the corner next year. If not, we'll find new ways to continue with the miles. I think I'm just about 450,000 miles since I started, all going to MS events or raising awareness and money for MS.
Great, thank you. So there's some guy that we both know is asking funny questions. He wants to know if you just do street riding or you also do motorcycle events like an Evel Knievel type.
Well, the silly events that I do, or the silly fundraisers that I do, which they're all fundraisers. So for the right amount of money, bring it on.
Right. All right. So another question is, how are you personally dealing with the restrictions of the stay-at-home orders with the COVID? And
sure. Well, I don't know. In New Hampshire, we're lucky. I think we're like 48th or 49th on the list of states as far as how bad the COVID is. But the thing about riding motorcycles is it's a very socially distanced sport. I don't talk to anybody or see anybody. I was on the road today. It was a short day, but 8 hours or 9 hours. The only time I actually had interaction was in New Jersey, where they have to pump your gas. That's the only person I even came within 20 feet of all day. And riding a motorcycle across the country is the same way. I mean, it's getting gas, paying at the pump, and I really have no contact with other people. When I'm home, working my home office, I take the dog for a walk. It's really kind of nice. I have to remember to put a mask on when I go to the post office or to the grocery store once a week, or so it's not affecting me a lot that way.
All right, thank you for that. Now going to an MS question for you. People want to, well, somebody's asking if from your surgery, did you have any exacerbation?
No, I didn't. It is something that you have to think about. Same thing with getting COVID or something, if that's going to trigger an exacerbation, because any time that your body's under stress, personally, I believe can trigger that. But I've been really lucky, and I honestly can't remember how many years ago was my last exacerbation. So I'm really doing well. So I don't forget about it, but but it isn't on the forefront of my mind every single day, which is good. And I know that's not the way for everybody. So again, I feel blessed or lucky that MS hasn't been bothering me for years now. But I do think about it. I think about the surgery and what it, recovery and my body fighting the possible infection or whatever from a surgery. I think about it, but I'm at the point where it wasn't something that stopped me from doing it.
Okay. A person just wrote in. They want to know, his name is Don. He wants to know how you manage riding in extreme heat. What is it that you do to keep your body cool?
Well, I've tried all kinds of cooling systems, and quite frankly, besides a system that's about $40,000 that the government made, I haven't found anything that works for the type of riding I do. If I was going to go out for an hour or half an hour, there's plenty of different vests with ice and things like that do work pretty well. But if you're riding all day long like I do, you'd have to refill that ice chest 3-4 times, and that's just a bother and a thing I wouldn't do. So to me, it's dressing properly, paying attention to my body. When I get overheated, I start to have cognitive issues, and I know it's time to stop and either take an hour or get a hotel for the night. There's plenty of times I pull into a gas station and I can't remember to put my feet down, and I park the bike. I take off my helmet. I stick it in that ice box that's out in front of every convenience store. I put my smelly helmet in that ice box, go inside, have a Coke or something cold, and give myself 20 minutes, 30 minutes to cool off, come back out. My helmet's nice and chilled, put it on my head, and allows me to go a little bit further. So.
Great. Thank you for that. So another person actually wrote recently asking that with all the mileage that you do on the motorcycle, do you have any of the, a lot of people get neuropathy, and they want to know if you have any, what do you do to differentiate between the buzzing that you might have from the bike riding or what you might be getting that could be affecting your lower legs?
Well, I don't have any issues with my legs. I have a lot of issues with my hands and my arms and and my neck, but my family has a history of spinal stenosis, and a couple of years ago I had my neck fused, and one of the surgeries I just had done last month was they removed my funny bone. Now I know everybody's worried about that it might not be funny anymore, but they removed, basically they took that nerve, the ulnar nerve, and it was always swollen. So if I just put my elbow down on something, my hands would tingle or go numb, and I've had that for years. So what they do is they actually took it and they moved it to the inside in here. They transpositioned the nerve, so it's no longer very, very sensitive. So hopefully that will help with some of I was getting a lot of loss of feeling in my lower half of my hand when I rode, or even just laying in bed, my arms would go numb. None of that is MS. It's just, that's I blame my father for that. He had a lot of spinal issues and stuff. So I'd love to blame MS for a lot of the nerve stuff, but it seems to me it's just wear and tear. I'm getting old,
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have any other questions, but I do want to thank you for being here. And I know you have quite a ride still to go, and I want to thank you for what you're going to be doing with the motorcycle. And MS Views and News, of course, will help to promote everything that's going to happen with that raffle that we're going to put together. And boy, I can't wait to see the bike. I can't wait till I can fly again. Oh my gosh, I got to get up to Atlanta and check this thing out as it's in the phases to get recustomized.
Yeah, we're going to make an announcement probably within a month about what we're doing with it, and people will be able to follow along as we do it. And it's going to be a really cool project. There's a lot of people involved. Yamaha donated a bike, just donated a motorcycle to MS Views and News. So Stuart is a biker.
Right. I got to get my bandana out. I wore it the last time. I got to get it out again. All right. I got to get a bandana. And maybe it'll be great though, because it'll cover this balding. It'll cover this balding forehead. All right. So we will. I can't wait to become an easy rider. All right. Okay, great. Well, Paul, thanks again for being online. Thanks for helping out with everything that you do. And I'm going to say thank you to all of our program attendees. Okay. Again, we can't do these programs without you. Remember, please, we will be online again tomorrow night, providing the MS Hub, and we'll be interviewing the people from the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Yeah, chasing the cure. There we go. All right. And then next week I'll be on with Aaron Boster again. But for tonight's program, again, we want to thank Bristol-Myers Squibb and Novartis. All right. And I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Okay. So have a wonderful evening. And we're done.
Good night, everybody.